Hello everyone. Today I wanted to step outside the Star Trek universe to talk about Dune. Now, at the time of writing, the latest adaptation of Frank Herbert's seminal science fiction novel has been out for a little over 3 weeks in the US and the UK, and the sequel, or rather, should I say Dune Part Two, has just been announced, which I am very excited about. Personally, I've seen it just the other week, and I loved it. I love Denis Villeneuve as a director. He's yet to make a bad movie as far as I'm concerned. I plan on seeing it again in IMAX, and maybe even a third time, I'll see. But I'll be making another video about my thoughts on the movie at a later date. What I wanted to talk about in this video, though, is how the hell this movie actually managed to succeed where so many previous attempts failed. Now, as some of you may know, there were 2 previous attempts at getting Dune made before the David Lynch 1980s movie. The fascinating-sounding 1970s adaptation by Alejandro Jodorowsky, and another version by Ridley Scott, which was developed later. But the Lynch movie flopped and met a mixed reception. I did a review on it before, you can watch it here, and later the Sci-Fi Channel made the 2 miniseries Dune and Children of Dune, which, while they were better, weren't exactly triumphs. So, how did Dune 2021 get it right? As I said, while I'll be talking more about the movie itself in another video, here I wanted to talk more about its box office and audience reception. Dune is a book which has had a reputation of being unfilmable, and even fans of the book will admit that it's incredibly dense and difficult to get into during the first 100 pages, but this new version has managed to become a box office success, and there doesn't seem to be a huge divide between critical and audience reception. People generally really like the movie. So here's my 2 cents on how exactly this new adaptation managed to appeal to so many and find the success it did. Point 1. Hardly any mention of the book. A critical part in the success of any movie is its marketing campaign, and Dune has had one of the best campaigns I've seen in recent years. And in my opinion, one of the biggest strengths of the trailers and posters, etc., is that they barely mention the book at all. None of the trailers flash the usual based on a best-selling novel text, and the posters don't do it either. That text is there, but blink and you'll miss it. I think this was a very deliberate and clever move. It may seem a little counterintuitive. After all, the whole point of adapting pre-existing works is to pull in the fans which are already there thanks to those works, but I've always observed a strange phenomenon when it comes to advertising adaptations of books. That phenomenon being that when a trailer or poster puts the based on a best-selling novel line front and center, the audience feels as if they should have read the book or be familiar with it before seeing the movie. Now, obviously any adaptation should be able to stand on its own, and there's no reason unfamiliarity with the source material should stop someone from seeing the adaptation, if it's done well anyway. But I've always felt like this marketing line is a bit of a double-edged sword. The point of this line is to appeal to fans of the source material and get them hyped for the adaptation. However, if you're not familiar with the source material, then this line can make you feel like you're out of the loop in a way. This trailer assumes you're familiar with some kind of best-selling novel, but if you've never heard of it, this line doesn't really get you excited. Now, there are instances where this line works. For example, the Lord of the Rings and the Harry Potter books were massive literary hits even before their adaptations, and I mean massive. The Lord of the Rings trilogy has sold over 150 million copies, and Harry Potter sold over 500 million, and a good chunk of these sales were before the films. So when a trailer for these movies flashes the based on the best-selling novel, chances are the viewer has either read the novels or knows someone who has, and who can get them hyped up about the adaptation for those unfamiliar with the work. Dune, on the other hand, which is one of the best-selling science fiction novels of all time, if not the best, has sold 20 million copies, which is kinda shockingly low compared to the aforementioned books. Therefore, the chances of a random moviegoer having actually read the books or even knowing someone who has is extremely remote, which is why it was so clever of the trailers and posters etc. to barely mention the books at all. Much of the marketing or behind the scenes material discussing the book at length are found on YouTube, where yes, they got a lot of views, but that's because online marketing can more easily target the fans of the book, which, compared to the wider popular consciousness, is still quite a small audience. The marketing material which was seen by the most amount of people, the widest audience, simply didn't even try to use the book as a marketing tool. Speaking of which, Point 2, the trailers themselves were awesome. Good trailer design is something which I don't often see discussed all that much in online film discourse, but it really should be. Most of the time people can just sort of feel when a trailer doesn't work. Whether it's the pacing or the music or the quality of the footage being shown, people can just tell when a trailer hasn't really done its job properly. As much as I like Star Trek Beyond, for example, the first trailer which used the song Sabotage, which is a great song and pivotal in the film's plot, just didn't do a good job of selling that movie. The first Dune trailer, though, had a brilliant rendition of Pink Floyd's Eclipse, which pulls double duty of just being tonally perfect for the film, but also a nice nod to those familiar with Jodorowsky's Dune as he got Pink Floyd to score his adaptation. But the music is not what made the Dune trailer so good. It's not even the visuals. Now, as a quick aside, in my opinion, Dune's visual craft is far superior to most blockbusters in recent years, but by design, most trailers for big sci-fi blockbusters are gonna use the most spectacular shots anyway, so the visuals of Dune aren't what will really grab a viewer's attention. It's also certainly not the world building. As imaginative and unique as Dune's fictional universe is, it simply can't be conveyed well in a trailer. I mean, the book struggled to do it in the first 100 pages, and to be fair, even this new adaptation is front-loaded with a lot of expositional dialogue as well. But again, these days, audiences are accustomed to out-of-this-world settings and planets and spaceships, etc. There's Star Wars, Star Trek, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sci-fi world building isn't all that special anymore. I think this is one of the big problems with the 1980s movie as well, as a lot of that marketing focused on the world and the larger universe. Even the blurb on the back of the VHS copy of the film, which I had a while ago, highlighted the great sets in the movie. Which, yes, the production design in that movie is terrific, but no moviegoer is going to get hyped to see a movie over set design. So instead, the recent Dune trailers scaled back the world-building elements to the bare minimum. Spice is a precious resource and everyone wants it, the Atreides are the good guys, the Harkonnens are the bad guys, shit kicks off and there's a big worm. That's really all you get. The primary focus of the trailers and even the posters is the emotional journey of its central character and those around him. There is a big reason why superhero movies have become so dominant, and it's because of this inherent focus on character. More than anything else, audiences simply want compelling drama and interesting characters in their movies. It's the one thing which money can't really buy you. You can accomplish it at any budget level. This is why imaginative sci-fi universes and spectacular visuals aren't automatically the selling points a lot of people think they are. Valerian the City of a Thousand Planets has more visual imagination in single shots than entire movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but no one saw it because no one gave a shit about these two people. Superhero movies are literally named after their central characters, and simply through the presence of the genre's tropes, audiences will understand through watching a trailer who the protagonist is, their goal, the obstacles they have to overcome, and the villain they're up against, and all of that is interspersed with the usual action and spectacle which we expect from blockbusters. That's why even Ant-Man made over $500 million. Dune's marketing, especially the trailers, zero in on Paul Atreides and his journey. The coming-of-age story surrounding his awakening Bene Gesserit powers, the father-son relationship, his friendship with Duncan Idaho, and hints of the love story between Paul and Shani. From what little we're given about the world, we understand the larger context Paul's journey will take place in, and this was crucial in selling Dune to a wider audience. Speaking of the characters though, point 3, the cast. Dune has an incredible cast. Being someone so familiar with the book and the previous adaptations, I have to say the actors chosen to play each character is pretty much spot on. But the movie is also helped immensely by where these actors are in terms of their careers and the general buzz around them. Hollywood conventional wisdom is that movies need movie stars to sell them, but over the past few years that idea has been proven to be demonstrably false. There are a few names which can still guarantee butts in seats like Tom Cruise, Leonardo DiCaprio and Will Smith, but even they have some caveats to that statement. A lot of movie stars you'd think would assure box office success have been in some surprising flops. For example, Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt, two of the most popular actors in the world at the time, could only just get passengers beyond $300 million despite having starred in huge franchise pictures which grossed many times that amount. which could be why Dune didn't anchor itself on one or two big names, but instead the cast is stacked with popular stars with dedicated online fandoms, many of whom were just in big franchise hits. We've got Oscar Isaac coming off Star Wars, Rebecca Ferguson, who's still a big player in the Mission Impossible series, Jason Momoa, who's just had Aquaman, Academy Award winner Javier Bardem, who's still famous from Skyfall, Zendaya, who's still in the Spider-Man movies, and Timothée Chalamet, who has had Oscar buzz around him since Call Me By Your Name and already has a filmography of well-received low-budget indie hits, which includes Wes Anderson's The French Dispatch, which opened in the same month as Dune. The point is, this cast is so chock full of big and exciting names, well-established stars and younger up-and-comers, that the cumulative effect of all these recognisable actors really did create that marquee value Hollywood conventional wisdom says is usually assured by the presence of a movie star. Dune simply showed that you need a lot more than just one. Point 4, the rollout. How a film hits cinemas is also crucially important these days, and getting it right can transform a likely flop into a sleeper hit. This is what I think happened with films like Kingsman and to some extent Ready Player One and Alita Battle Angel. If any of these movies had simply released a few trailers and then hit cinemas, I think they would have failed, but Kingsman especially did something quite clever, which was having its premiere a full month before its actual release in the UK and 2 months before its US release. It originally dropped in December 2014 at Butt-Numathon, where it became the talk of the town, received strong critical reviews and positive social media buzz. So when it finally hit cinemas, this buzz was enough to score a $34 million opening weekend, which isn't huge, but this buzz then translated into strong word of mouth, which led to the movie topping over $400 million worldwide at the box office. And this seems to be what's happening with Dune as well, except Dune's cinematic rollout was even more protracted. First, it debuted at the Venice Film Festival in early September, where it generated that strong critical praise and social media buzz, and slowly released in a number of smaller international markets where that buzz continued before finally reaching the US and Europe in late October, where it scored a $40 million opening, which, again, not massive, but the movie really seems to have some legs, as at the time of writing, it's already reached $300 million worldwide, and considering it dropped in the middle of a global pandemic and the public dispute between Denis Villeneuve and Warner Bros. Over the HBO Max release was really the only major stumble in terms of a marketing campaign, that kind of box office result is strikingly impressive. So, dear viewer, what can we learn from this ramble of mine about marketing and box office trends and cinema release schedules, etc.? Well, as much as I like talking about this stuff, just in general, I think there are some truly valuable lessons to learn from Dune. There's long been a criticism of Hollywood these days over the past decade surrounding the seemingly endless amount of remakes, reboots, and sequels, and the lack of new original IPs. The industry seems to be stuck in two extremes, either making small, low-budget indie films which get Oscar buzz and no one really sees them, or gigantic billion-dollar blockbuster interconnected universe things. But while Dune is a pre-existing IP which already did have a fanbase, as I pointed out earlier in the video, the pop culture awareness of that IP and the size of that fanbase still made it a pretty niche thing, which was brand new to most people who went to see this new adaptation. In the title of this video, I said that Dune pulled off the impossible, not in adapting the work itself, although that was very difficult, but it is effectively a brand new franchise which has truly become a hit, and has bled into pop culture to the point where iconography and metatextual awareness of the film has conjured a bunch of new Instagram memes, which to me is a big indicator of success anyway, but according to Hollywood conventional wisdom and so on, that kind of thing should be impossible these days. So, I suppose the takeaway from this video is that if Dune, this unfilmable, far too dense for its own good, bizarre acid trip of a space epic, can be successful, then perhaps so can all those great scripts which have been left to gather dust in some writer's drawer somewhere. As I pointed out earlier in the video, franchise name or not, what audiences love and what they'll spend money to go and see are great stories, and I think the success of Dune provides filmmakers with a model of sorts for how to get those great new original stories out there for the world to see. Thank you for watching. If you like these videos, subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on my new uploads. If you want to help the channel grow, join my patrons or my YouTube members, where you can see videos early as well as some other exclusive content. Speaking of which, I'd like to quickly thank all of my patrons and members who are now appearing on screen. Have a good one, and as always, live long and prosper.